The first time I ever cheated on a test was in Mrs. Clayton's 6th grade math class. I'd always been a good student, but I'd recently gotten contact lenses and I wasn't wearing my glasses. Mrs. Clayton was an extremely strict teacher who would give out pop quizzes every day to keep people on their toes. And since I couldn't see the board without my glasses, I had no idea what I was doing half the time. My grades were slipping and I was getting really stressed out. Then one day in class, Jessica, the girl sitting next to me, turned around and asked if I wanted to copy her answers for the upcoming pop quiz. She said she had a study guide and she was pretty sure she knew all the answers. At the time, it felt like a really big deal. The thought of cheating had never even crossed my mind before. But when I realized that I had nothing to lose, I agreed to copy her answers. We copied each other's homework for the rest of the semester and we both got A's. It wasn't until years later that I found out that Jessica's mom had made the study guide for her so that she could get good grades. So technically, I hadn't even cheated. I suppose it was just a kind of reverse cheating where I was helping Jessica cheat. I don't know. Anyways, I became somewhat of a habitual cheater after that. I was good at hiding it too. I'd memorize answers to vocabulary tests by making up silly sentences or stories to remember the definitions. I'd memorize math formulas. I'd copy answers off of people's tests during group projects and so on. I also started working with my cousin Brian because he was just really good at taking tests. He had this whole system where he would memorize the entire periodic table backwards and forwards, and then he would take the final exam and fill in all the blanks. I also started doing this and I was eventually able to memorize almost the entire periodic table. It took a lot of work and commitment, but it was worth it because it helped me get good grades even though I didn't really understand the material most of the time. So basically I got away with cheating throughout all of elementary, middle and high school and only got caught once, and that was when I was in 9th grade. I had a really bad English teacher named Mr. Williams who didn't really teach us anything. He just gave us packets of stuff to read, and then gave us tests over it. I ended up failing one of the tests, and he gave me an F on my next paper. I was mad, so I went to the principal, Mr. Clayton, who happened to be Mrs. Clayton's husband. I told him that Mr. Williams had given me a bad grade and he told me to suck it up and work harder. I was furious. I ended up telling him that I wasn't going to put in any effort anymore because it didn't matter and that he should just expel Mr. Williams. I knew I probably shouldn't have said that, but I was a hormonal teenager and I couldn't control myself. Mr. Clayton looked me dead in the eyes and expelled me. He actually said, "Ryan, sometimes it feels like you think the world revolves around you. Do you know how spoiled and self-centered that sounds?" I ran out of the office crying. And then the next day I came back to school with a new last name. By changing my last name from Ryan Clayton to Ryan Mills, I was no longer under Mr. Clayton's jurisdiction. I enrolled in a different school and I pretty much kept to myself for the rest of high school. I didn't want anyone knowing about what had happened. I changed schools a few times after that and I didn't really cheat anymore either. Although I was pretty good at it, I decided to stop because I knew that if I got caught one more time, I wouldn't get suspended. I'd get expelled. I was kind of bored with school anyways, and I was already used to getting good grades. So I stopped caring about grades and I just focused on having fun. But now that I'm in college, it's a whole new story. In my experience, college professors don't really care whether or not you cheat. They just want you to learn the material. If you get caught cheating, they'll usually just give you a 0 on the assignment or a lower grade on the test or something. They rarely ever fail you for cheating. That being said, I still don't want to get caught cheating. My problem is that there are these 2 girls in all of my classes, and they are constantly talking to each other. Like they won't shut up. It drives me insane. I've talked to them about it and asked them to be quiet, but they just laugh at me. They're also pretty smart, so I can't even copy their work. Now, there is one class where they aren't in together. It's called Introduction to Sociology. And this is where I've done all of my cheating. There's this one girl in the class, though, who sits behind me and she copies my answers all the time. So technically, I guess I'm the one who's doing all of the cheating. Anyways, I did okay on my first test. I studied for it, so I knew most of the answers. But on the second test, I had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, so I barely studied. And then when I got the test back, I noticed that I'd gotten almost every question wrong. I was so angry because I didn't think it was fair that I got such a bad grade when the other girls got good grades. I asked my friend Matt if he got a good grade, and he said he got a 94%. So I asked him if I could look at his test. He said, sure. Then I just copied all of his answers down. I feel really bad about it, but I just couldn't help myself. I mean, come on, how am I supposed to compete with these girls? One of them even has a tutor. Another one downloads an app that gives you the answers. How am I supposed to compete with that? And then the third test comes along and I do the same thing again. I ask Matt what he got and then I copy his answers. And then I start thinking to myself, maybe I should just ask these girls to let me copy their answers. So I turn around and ask Sarah, one of the girls, if I could look at her test. She looks at me and says, "You're not gonna cheat, are you?" I say, "Well, yeah, I was, but now I don't need to because I have your answers." She gets super pissed off and starts yelling at me. Then Ms. Reed, our professor, tells us to calm down, and she kicks us out of class. Now, I knew I had messed up when I bragged to Matt about cheating. He told me that he wasn't going to let me copy his answers this time. Then he told me that if I tried to cheat on the fourth test, he was going to report me to the professors. I laughed and told him not to worry, that I had a plan. You see, I'd been taking notes on all of the tests that I'd taken so far, and I'd written down all of the questions and answers. I'd done this because I was going to make a study guide to sell to people. I didn't end up making the study guide because I got lazy, but I still had the notes. So what I did was I made photocopies of the questions and answers, and then I hid them around the classroom. I made sure that they weren't in plain sight, though, because I didn't want to get caught. On the day of the test, I got to class early, and I told Matt that I had a surprise for him. Then I hid the photocopies of the test around the room like little Easter eggs. Matt thought it was funny, and he helped me hide them. Then when the other students started coming in, I started acting like my normal self again, and I chatted with them and joked around. When Ms. Reed started passing out the test, everyone got the same test except for me. Mine had all different questions on it. I just acted confused and asked her if I could switch tests with someone, which she let me do. Then I started frantically looking around the room for the answers. I found the first one pretty quickly, and then the second one, and the third, and so on. It was actually pretty easy to find them all. There was this one girl, Emily, who sat near the front of the class and she was struggling with the test. I felt bad for her, so I started loudly reading the answers to the questions as I found them. She looked at me and mouthed thank you. When Ms. Reed was collecting the tests, I pretended to be struggling, and I asked her if she could give me more time. She agreed, and then I slipped the answer key into my pocket. I couldn't help but smile. It was kind of childish, but I just couldn't help myself. As soon as I got home, I went to my computer and deleted all the pictures of the answer key. I also erased all of the text messages where I bragged to Matt about cheating. Then I threw my cell phone into my closet and locked the door. I don't know why I did that. I guess I just needed to hide evidence or something. I know it's stupid, but I can't help it. I love cheating and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Mwahaha.